Welcome to the Think Like a Musician podcast. This show will teach you the time management skills you need to be joyful, productive, and fulfilled in all areas of life. You're going to learn a completely unique and innovative approach to managing your crazy, busy life. I'm a lifelong musician, so you're going to hear a musician's creative and intuitive system for time management and work-life balance. We'll discuss time management, work-life balance, goal setting, inspiration, creativity, peak performance, and living your purpose. I want to help you live your life like it's a masterpiece. I'm a life coach, professional speaker, productivity expert, and your host, Scott Snow. Hey, welcome back to the show. I am making the transition from all the hats we wear to think like a musician, but I still wanted to show you that I'm still every bit as much focused to roles and managing all the hats I wear. This is just a different way of saying it. In musical terms, I think of a set list. So as your favorite band has a set list of all their best hits, they also have a couple new ones that they're working on. And I think the same thing we need to do with our own self-development. We have our regular roles that we play, and we have to have some new ones that we're working on. Slip them in, try them on. A lot of times I see young kids, high school graduates and that age, a lot of them have no idea what they want to do. And I think part of it is this lack of cultivating and growing this garden of your passions, hobbies, and interests. So in order to do that, you need to try on different hats. And you have to kind of put your identity on pause and say, well, now I'm into backgammon. And just try it on. You have to go deep enough to see if it works for you. Maybe after a couple of weeks of playing or studying it or reading a couple of books, and you go, well, that's not really for me. In fact, that's what happened to me with chess. For a long time, I was always thinking, I want to be into chess. I always thought it looked cool. There was a book, I think it was by Harold Schoenberg, and he compared all of the main ages of art and music, like starting with the classical era, and then the romantic and the modern, and how there was parallels between composers, which was my expertise, being a music major, and the chess players and how they played, and that the aesthetic was similar. So you've got to try on those hats, and for a while I said, I'm going to be into chess, and I just found I didn't have the brain for it. Like I'm not a visual person. I certainly couldn't think that many moves ahead. But when I discovered backgammon, I really enjoyed. It was not as much with the thinking ahead. It was more like it really made me feel like I was at the casino, and I like that. You're doing some luck, and you're trying to be wild here, and you're having a strategy over here, and that appealed to me. So with that in mind, I want to share my current role list with you, my set list. And of course, I encourage you to create a similar one for your life. Here are my roles. Under the mind, body, spirit category, there are 4 categories of roles, as you know. I have visionary, 180-pound body, and spiritual / transcendental meditation. Those are the 3 under my mind, body, spirit category. Those are the hats I wear, or that I want to wear. Under the giving and receiving category, I'm a millionaire, which I'm not a millionaire yet, but I've given myself permission to have that place card role. It holds that place as I'm working towards it. And a philanthropist. In the personal category, there's also personal and professional. Personal roles, I have husband, dad, family, drummer, because I can't forget that. I can't forget my music roots, man. That's where people go wrong. They get really passionate about something through high school, and then they get a job that's unrelated, and then they just forget it, and then they wonder why they're unfulfilled and lacking fun. So I made that commitment. I'm going to be a drummer. I'm going to play a couple minutes every day at least, or I'm going to celebrate drummers or do something that feeds that drummer role. Backgammon enthusiast is another role. Chef and mixologist. I love cooking at home. That's an easy one. That's fun. A movie buff. joker. This is where I consider myself, I have kind of a wise guy part of my personality too. I like to root for the villain in movies and that sort of thing. I like heavy metal music. Writer is another role. Under the professional category, I have number one customer of Think Like a Musician. It's my company. I should be the number one customer, using all of its technologies and being an example. Next one is CEO and the founder of Think Like a Musician. There are responsibilities that come with that too. Productivity expert. I got to keep my skills sharp. Professional speaker. That requires a lot of skill and practice, just like learning an instrument. Now I can go downstairs in the man cave and practice speaking, just like I would playing drums and get all sweaty and working on your left hand. I can take that same approach because now I know how to become very good at something through that hard work. Life coach. Skills there that need to be refined and developed. Sales pro. Now, since I'm a musician and creative person, business doesn't come to me very naturally. So I need to work on that. I need to get the old Grant Cardone tapes out and study it and improve those elements of my game. Marketing whiz. I've got to be on social media. I've got to contribute on social media. All these things. Business student. I've got to know when to have a mentor, when I don't know the answers. Be open to other people's suggestions and don't be stubborn. And music therapist. I still have many clients for music therapy. Story number 2. I'm revising my book, Think Like a Musician. I'm turning it into a fictional story. Before it was more of like a self-development, like a self-help, nonfiction type of book. It was a little bit flat, you know. Certainly I still feel if you went right through the book and followed all the instructions and did your assignments that you would really learn a lot of self-development. But I said, you know what, how about we make this a story? Kind of in the vein of the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. So I'm looking forward to that. That changes things. In fact, when I was meditating, this is story 3, I was meditating the other day and I had some ideas for the book. Now, usually when I'm meditating, my goal is not to brainstorm creative ideas. Some people do that, but I try to follow in the transcendental meditation discipline and approach. And I don't want to generate ideas. I want to turn the voltage, the electricity down so much in my mind that I can't even create a thought. That's where I want to be for that 20 minutes. But sometimes I lose that focus of focusing on the oral mantra. And I start thinking about stuff, you know, and I did have a really good idea about the book that could kind of change the whole thing. So that is a big whopper of a idea, but not the intent. Story number 4. Oh, with this COVID and the Delta stuff, I read the news. I read 3 newspapers every day, and it's getting ridiculous, man. I feel so bad for these nurses and the doctors putting up with this, that we thought we were all done with this and the silliness going on, that we're still in it. And just to hear some of their stories of what it's like and just the burnout, and you just feel for them, you know. And there was a couple things I read in a note that was written by a nurse in the paper today that was, they were saying that they have to pull from the deep wells of resilience. And I love that phrase. That takes a lot of strength to be able to do that. And instead of making it to the light at the end of the tunnel, they're being told they have to just learn to see in the dark. And that makes a lot of sense. Story number 5. When I was back at UMass, I wasn't really a jazz fan. I was really more of a drum corps guy, drum lines and all that. But as I was surrounded with all the graduate students and they were really passionate about jazz, I started to get into it. It was like osmosis. And anything that you see that passion going on and that authentic love for something, you're drawn to it. So I started to really get into that, hanging out with some of the grad students and, you know, going to local clubs and having conversations with them, you know, and usually they were very cool. Like there was a time when one of my TAs, he was a stand-up bass player. and he said I should listen to John Coltrane. So I went to the library and I listened to John Coltrane. Now, probably a later one, more of a explosive avant-garde one. And I went back to this guy and I was like, well, I don't know, that was a lot. I don't know if I like him. And he was patient. He's like, you're just not ready. And that was true. I ended up very much appreciating John Coltrane and still do. Another TA that I had, a drum teacher, told me a similar thing for Mahler and his grand symphonies. So sometimes you just have to wait. You're not ready for those other things. Story 6, goals. With this revision of my book, I've really been focused in on goals. And the other day I was at Starbucks for 2 hours in the 40-degree cold AC weather and reworking my concept and use of goals. And I think I've got it now. 4 types of goals in my book: action goals, snapshot goals, deadline goals, and combination goals. So let me give you some examples of them. An action goal. Obviously an action. I do meditation twice a day for 20 minutes. Make it very clear, very concrete, measurable. The time, duration, everything is in there that you can just hand that to someone else and they could carry out that action. The next type is the snapshot goal. Obviously, this is just a snapshot in time. An example might be, I earn X dollars per month with my new business. That's it. Also, this doesn't have to be true. You could be thinking big. That's fine. I like thinking big. That'll give you more action, right? Give you more motivation. Deadline goals. An example, by December 31st, I weigh 180 pounds. Combination goal. This is just a bunch of different types of goals together, bundled together. So an example of a combination might be that, I'm a professional speaker and I've got a bunch of sub goals under that being a speaker. I'm a TED Talk speaker. That's a snapshot goal. I travel the USA speaking. Snapshot goal. I work on the Scott Snow show for 30 minutes every night. That's like my speaking skills and my thing. That's an action goal. I write a speaking gig report every week. That's an action goal. How many holds me accountable? How many gigs did I book? How many people did I call? How many freebies did I do? That sort of thing. Story 7. Peak performance. Well, think like a musician wouldn't be the same without talking about some peak performance approaches. I want to give you an example of when I marched in drum corps. This was a big part of my early adulthood and late teen years, is marching in a drum corps called the Boston Crusaders Drum and Bugle Corps. And they were a competitive group. I learned so much, made a lot of lifelong friends. And I want to compare the first time I performed with the group and the last time I performed, because they're starkly different. In 1988, I was a junior in high school, and that was my first competition in Lynn, Massachusetts. And it was so scary, it was at night, so the lights were out. It looked like I was at the Super Bowl. And I was shaking in my boots. I was so, overwhelmed with all the hype, and I was nervous as hell. And we started the show, and I totally forgot the first move. My mind went blank. And I ended up crashing into the guy next to me. It was awful. I've had nightmares about it. And this was because I'm not thinking about anything. There was nothing I was focused on. I was just like a blank slate just going. And of course, that's what would happen. I would slam into the other guy. Now, let's fast forward to 1992. We did a Pictures at an Exhibition show. It was like a script that was unfolding. And it was in very slow time, it just ticked by. I would be thinking, okay, now keep your eye on the drum major. He's going to give the beginning count off to start. Check. Now this line here, make sure to look down the line and dress to the bass drum so that it forms this, triangle shape. Check. Now make sure we try to make sure the tempo is, the speed of the music is on time here, and move my feet here. Check. And so on all the way through the show. Now, this is not to say that I wasn't enjoying it and being in the moment and all that. Of course, there's that. You're enjoying performing, but you're also following that dialogue through the show. You're in peak performance mode because you know exactly what's going on a very granular level. And that even makes you more successful in adjusting to any spontaneity, things that go wrong, where you have to make an adjustment, which always happens. So this is a look at 2 different performances. I think you could apply that as well. Story 8. Today in the newspaper, I read that this term fixed principles of politicians. What are this politicians' fixed principles? What do they really believe? And I think this is very interesting to think about politicians in this way. It's like, I always thought that they should have debates when everyone has a couple of shots of whiskey or something, so you can really hear what they feel. Tell me the truth. What do you really feel about this? That's what I want to hear. But of course, we don't do that. But what are this person's core values? For this company, Think Like a Musician, my core values are to be joyful, productive, and fulfilled. And I always reinforce that in the intro and the outro. So those are what I try to do. So all of my material is focused in that direction. Fixed principles with a politician, this affects what they do, their actions, their beliefs, what's behind their actions, what makes up their leadership skills, their decision making. And this is all in this realm of Think Like a Musician, this self-development work, looking inward and knowing yourself, knowing the different parts of yourself. And if you go further in my book, you'll learn more about mission statements and writing a mini mission statement for each of your roles. So that could be 20 paragraphs, 1 paragraph for each of your roles. And it's so important to explore the why. What makes you at your best in each role? Got to know that. Story number 9. I just watched the movie Mr. Brooks with Kevin Costner. If you wanted to see that movie, there are going to be spoilers ahead, so you might want to shut it off. But it's a pretty old movie. I always thought it was kind of a weak movie. I never had much interest in really watching it. But I knew it was about Kevin Costner being a serial killer. And, like you would never guess it because he's like a man of the year and a wealthy philanthropist and business owner who, everyone loves. But he has this addiction that he's a serial killer. And I thought what was really clever about the movie is that William Hurt plays his conscience. So whenever Costner is, trying to not go through with his terrible plans, he's talking with William Hurt. William Hurt's in the scene. And I thought that was really interesting. Kind of like Dexter. And the other part that I really liked, Demi Moore was awesome in it too. That was the role I really thought she was great in, as like a badass detective and angry. And that to me was like a great role for her. One of the important life purpose type of lessons from this movie was they found out that Demi Moore was a detective, but also she's independently wealthy. Like she's worth like $60 million, they found when they looked up all of her records online. So really, she just was a detective because she wanted to do that. Like that was her choice. She could just sit on her butt and not do anything. And they were saying that's finding something that's yours. She could have had everything handed to her, but that wouldn't have been hers. So her being a detective, that was her claiming, that's her thing. And I like that. I'll end with a story. This is story number 10. About my past. When I was probably like 12 years old, around there, maybe, 12 to 14, I had a neighbor who was very religious. And they were against, rock and roll or anything like that. And of course, I was raised on, heavy metal, Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and all that stuff. So they wanted me to go to this presentation at their church, which was basically a guy saying how awful hard rock music was and all the devilish stuff in it. And it was really like a intervention type of thing to make you and get away from all that hard music because it was bad and evil. But actually, the presentation made me feel exactly the opposite. I fell in love with the music because of all their presentations. Definitely backfired there. Like when I still remember a lot of this presentation, with a picture of the Highway to Hell album on the screen. And, I could hear audible gasps from the audience that these guys are bad. AC/DC and Ozzy, look at all the things he's doing. And And then they were getting even more weird with they were playing records backwards. It was almost like you guys are the creepy ones, not the music. And, I think putting in meaning that wasn't even there. That they say, oh, see that? He said marijuana very clearly when we record, put the record backwards. It was silly. So it just supports that whatever you believe in, what's strong and what's really valuable to you in your heart is not going to be easily shaken up. I read the newspaper with this focus of belief systems, and I love to see how people act given their belief systems. I found in music therapy that pretty much the music that you listen to in your late teen years are the types of artists and music that will be your most important, your go-to music for the rest of your life. When I go to nursing homes, I would play music that was popular in their teen years. Try it. Thanks for joining me, and we'll be back again. See ya. Visit thinklikeamusician.org for more information on how we can help you and your team with peak performance, time management, and work-life balance. We offer coaching, trainings, and workshops that'll empower you to be joyful, productive, and fulfilled in all areas of life. Visit thinklikeamusician.org.